All right, let's go.
Number 9. The false memory itself. In 2009, paranormal researcher Fiona Broom shared something that seemed absolutely certain to her. She had vivid memories of Nelson Mandela dying in prison during the 1980s. Not vague impressions, specific memories. She remembered news coverage of his death. She remembered a speech by his widow. She could see the images in her mind as clearly as if she had watched them happen. Then she discovered something that shouldn't have been possible. She wasn't alone. Other people online shared her exact memories, down to specific details. They all remembered the same false event, the same news coverage that never aired, the same historical moment that never occurred. Nelson Mandela was released from prison in 1990. He went on to become the first president of South Africa, serving from 1994 to 1999. He died in 2013, not in the 1980s, not in prison. The memories that Broom and thousands of others carried with perfect clarity were memories of something that had never happened. Broom created a website to document the phenomenon. What started as one woman's discovery of a shared false memory became, over the next decade, a way for an entire community to articulate something that had no simple explanation. If so many people could remember the exact same thing that never happened, what did that say about memory itself? What did it say about reality? She named it the Mandela Effect. The term stuck, and the examples kept multiplying. Number 8. The pattern of examples. Once people started looking, they found dozens of shared false memories affecting massive populations simultaneously. Many people clearly remember the Berenstein Bears. The spelling is almost certain in their minds. The actual spelling is Berenstain. The name comes directly from the authors, Stan and Jan Berenstain, and it appears on every book cover. Yet thousands of people, interviewed separately, insisted they remember it spelled with an E. The Monopoly Man. Nearly everyone who has played the game reports a vivid memory of him wearing a monocle and carrying a cane. He has the cane, he has never had a monocle. But when researchers showed participants images of Mr. Monopoly, many of them spontaneously drew him with one, not remembering seeing it, actually redrawing it from memory. Darth Vader's line from The Empire Strikes Back. Millions of people quoted him saying, "Luke, I am your father." The actual line is, "No, I am your father." The misquote is repeated so universally that the accurate version feels wrong to people who hear it. Ed McMahon and Publishers Clearinghouse. A massive population remembers McMahon showing up on people's doorsteps with oversized checks from Publishers Clearinghouse. He never did. He was affiliated with American Family Publishers, an entirely different sweepstakes company. Yet the false memory is specific enough that people describe the exact balloons, the exact checks, the exact doorsteps where this never happened. Snow White's Mirror. The line from the 1937 film is "Magic mirror on the wall." Nearly everyone quotes it as "mirror, mirror on the wall," a reversal of the actual words made false by century-old repetition and misquoting. This is where flat Earth belief ends and something harder to dismiss begins. These aren't conspiracy theories. They're not about understanding a shape or a political claim. They're about the basic, fundamental nature of how memory works and whether that working is reliable at all. Number 7. The Confabulation Explanation. Confabulation is not lying. That is the core thing that makes confabulation psychologically different from deception. When you confabulate, you are not inventing a story deliberately. You are reconstructing a memory from incomplete information, and your brain is filling in the gaps with material that makes sense given what you think you know. Elizabeth Loftus, a legendary memory researcher whose work spans over 5 decades, demonstrated this in a simple but striking experiment. Participants watched a video of a car accident. After watching, they answered questions about it. Some groups were asked, how fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other? Other groups were asked, how fast were the cars going when they hit each other? The difference in a single word changed the memory. A week later, when asked whether they had seen broken glass in the video, the group that heard smashed was significantly more likely to falsely report seeing broken glass. No glass was present, but their brains had constructed a memory consistent with the word smashed, a more violent collision, more likely to produce broken glass, and then stored that constructed version as if it were a direct perception. This is confabulation, not deception. Your brain making sense of incomplete data by filling in the missing pieces with what seems reasonable. Applied to the Mandela effect, confabulation suggests something deceptively simple. Most people do not have a clear memory of Nelson Mandela dying in the 1980s. What they have is two isolated facts sitting in their head with no connection between them. Nelson Mandela is spent 27 years in prison. Nelson Mandela is dead. In the absence of an actual clear memory of when or how he died, the brain connects those two facts and concludes he must have died in prison. The construction feels like a memory. It is stored as a memory, but it is a memory of something that never actually happened. The same mechanism explains Berenstain. The name sounds like it should be spelled with an E. Most names ending in that sound do. Berenstain fits a schema, a mental template for what an American Jewish surname should look like. Without a clear, recent memory of seeing the actual spelling, your brain supplies the version that fits the pattern, and that supplied version gets stored as a memory of seeing it spelled that way. Number 6. The source confusion explanation. Sometimes the false memory is not constructed from missing information. Sometimes it is constructed from real information that got its source wrong. Ed McMahon genuinely did appear on television. He genuinely did work for a sweepstakes promotion. Both of those facts are accurate. What the memory gets wrong is not whether these things happened, but what combination of facts went together. McMahon appeared on television for American Family Publishers, not Publishers Clearinghouse. But your brain, lacking a clear memory of the specific company, grabs the fact that McMahon was on TV, grabs the fact that someone was handing out big checks for a sweepstakes, and merges them together, filling in the blank with the most famous sweepstakes promotion of the era. Researchers call this source confusion. You remember a real detail, but not its actual source. Your brain then assigns it to a source that feels more likely or more famous or more memorable. This happens constantly in ordinary life. You remember a joke but forget who told it. You remember a fact but forget where you read it. You remember a scene but forget what movie it was from. Most of the time, these source confusions are trivial, but when millions of people make the same source confusion in the same direction at the same time, it creates the appearance of a shared false memory so specific and so coordinated that it seems like something larger is happening. Number 5, the misinformation effect. There is a third mechanism running underneath the Mandela effect that is in some ways more unsettling than confabulation or source confusion. It is the simple, documented fact that false information presented to you after an event can literally overwrite your memory of the event itself. Loftus demonstrated this as well. In a follow-up experiment, participants watched a video of a car accident and then read a written description of the accident that contained false information. Later, when asked about details they actually witnessed, they reported the false information they had read instead, not because they misremembered, because the false information had actually overwritten the true memory. Applied at scale, the misinformation effect suggests something genuinely troubling. If Berenstain misheard as Berenstain gets repeated thousands of times online, if people post false corrections about it, if misspelled versions circulate more than the real spelling, then people reading that misinformation afterward will have their memories updated to match it. Not because their original memory was bad, but because the false information literally overwrites the correct one. This suggests a mechanism by which false memories can be manufactured at scale, not through conspiracy, through the simple mechanical process of exposure to repeated misinformation that once encountered gets stored as true and overwrites what you actually remember. Number 4, the pattern recognition explanation.
The human brain evolves to detect patterns and to fill in missing information based on those patterns. In most circumstances, this is a profound advantage. You see an animal hiding in tall grass, not all of it, just a few pieces, but your brain recognizes the pattern and fills in the missing parts so you can react to the whole thing rather than just the visible fragments. Applied to memory and language, this same pattern recognition machinery is constantly filling in the blanks based on what seems most likely. Water looks flat, so a schema about flatness gets applied to the whole Earth. The Monopoly man is rich, and rich people in old-fashioned illustration wear monocles, so your schema about wealthy men gets applied to him. Darth Vader is a villain, and a villain saying a cruel line would include your name in it, so the pattern gets completed. This is not stupidity. Pattern recognition is how brains actually work. The problem is that when an entire population shares similar enough pattern recognition templates, when we are exposed to the same cultural touchstones, the same media, the same underlying assumptions about what things should look like, then we all fill in the blanks in the same direction. Thousands of people, separately, without coordination, will draw the Monopoly man with a monocle because they are all applying the same cultural template about what a wealthy gentleman looks like. The false detail is not shared through communication. It is generated independently by millions of brains using the same pattern recognition machinery on the same incomplete information.
Number 3. The Imagination Inflation Explanation. There is a documented psychological effect called imagination inflation. Simply by imagining an event vividly enough, people can increase their confidence that the event actually occurred. Not just increase their stated belief, literally change their brain's assessment of whether a memory is real. Researchers had participants imagine childhood events that had never happened to them. The more vividly they imagined the event, the more likely they were to later believe it had actually occurred. Some participants even produced detailed false memories of events they had only imagined. Applied to the Mandela effect, this suggests a mechanism of self-reinforcement. If you encounter the suggestion that the Monopoly man wore a monocle, and you begin imagining him wearing one, and you discuss that imagined version with other people, and those discussions get more vivid and more detailed, your brain's confidence that you actually remember seeing it increases. The imagination becomes a memory. Online communities dedicated to discussing specific Mandela effects are, in a sense, collective imagination inflation machines. The more people discuss a false detail, the more vividly they describe it, the more memories of it seem to be shared, the more real it becomes in everyone's mind, regardless of whether anyone actually saw it. Number 2. The Fringe Explanations. All of the explanations so far are grounded in documented psychology. They explain the phenomenon using mechanisms that have been demonstrated in laboratories and verified across decades of research. They do not require anything beyond normal memory function to make sense. There are other explanations in circulation that require rather more. Some people have proposed that the Mandela effect is evidence of parallel universes. Under this theory, multiple versions of reality exist simultaneously, and sometimes people somehow slip between timelines, retaining memories from the universe they came from. In the universe you remember, the Monopoly man does wear a monocle. You crossed into this one and the detail doesn't match anymore. Related to this is the CERN theory. Researchers at the European Organization for Nuclear Research conducted an experiment with a particle accelerator that some theorists believe may have caused reality to shift, not metaphorically, literally shifted what is true, which explains why so many people remember things a particular way and then wake up to find the world has changed. There is also the glitch in the matrix explanation, borrowed from the film The Matrix. This theory proposes that reality is a computer simulation, and the Mandela effect is a glitch in the code, details that didn't render correctly, inconsistencies in the background data, evidence that we are living inside a system that is not quite real. None of these theories can be tested. None of them leave physical evidence.
None of them make predictions that can be falsified. They exist in the realm of unfalsifiable speculation, which means they cannot be proven wrong and also cannot be proven true, and therefore sit in a category that is not really scientific at all. But they do reveal something important. They reveal that something about the Mandela effect is genuinely unsettling to people. The idea that your memory might be fundamentally untrustworthy is more frightening to most people than the idea that reality itself might be unreliable. And so people reach for explanations that move the problem outside of their own heads. Number 1. What the Mandela effect actually reveals. Here is the single most important thing about the Mandela effect that people misunderstand. It is not evidence that your memory is bad. It is evidence that your memory is constructive. Your brain is not a camera recording events. It is a meaning-making machine. It takes incomplete information, applies patterns, fills in the blanks with what makes sense, and constructs a narrative that feels true. And then it stores that construction, not the raw event. This is how memory has always worked. It is also how it has to work. If your brain tried to record everything with perfect accuracy, without interpretation, you would be overwhelmed with noise. You would not be able to extract meaning from experience. You would not be able to understand anything. The Mandela effect is not a flaw in memory. It is a feature. It is your brain doing exactly what it is supposed to do, filling gaps, applying pattern, making sense of the world. The problem is only when millions of brains fill the gap in the same direction, and then that shared construction becomes a false memory shared across a population. This has nothing to do with parallel universes. It has everything to do with the fact that you and 50,000 other people have enough similarity in how you think, in what cultural templates you absorbed, in what gaps you fill in the same way, that you all independently reconstruct the Monopoly man with a monocle, not because he had one, but because your brains are running similar software on similar inputs and reaching similar outputs. The Mandela effect is not evidence that reality is broken. It is evidence that the agreement between your brain's reconstruction of reality and reality itself is much more fragile than you probably assume, and that fragility is not a bug. It is simply how brains work. 9 theories about why people remember things that never happened. Not one of them requires you to have slipped into an alternate universe. Not one of them requires reality to have shifted. All of them require only that you understand your memory is not a recording device. It is a reconstruction engine. And when millions of reconstruction engines are built on similar templates, sometimes they all construct the same false thing. What you think you remember is often not what happened. What you think you remember is what your brain made sense of the incomplete information available to you and then stored as if it were a recording of an event. The Mandela effect is not a mystery about reality. It is a revelation about how profoundly your memory lies to you, not maliciously, necessarily by design. Subscribe to Cosmic Hives. See you in the next one.